Hey everyone, really excited for this episode. We've got Itamar Falcon, the co-founder and CEO of Coho AI. They've been making tons of noise in the press recently, and I'm super excited to have Itamar on the show. Itamar, thanks for being here, man.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. You have quite a diverse background until this startup. Excited to hear about you.
Of course. So my name is Itamar, born and raised in Israel in Tel Aviv. I started my so-called career, if you can call it a career, in the IDF in A200 in the intelligence unit. After that, I learned computer science, where I met Michael, our CTO, and actually a lot of the team is from that period as well. And then I was a product manager, a little bit at Google, mainly Microsoft. And then I partnered with Ariel Maislos and Michael Ehrlich and founded Coho.
That's amazing. So a few extra points here. So one, my younger brother is currently in 8200.
Wow.
He's doing a lot. He's doing great work, and if he's listening to this, because I know he sometimes listens to my shows, I'm sending you hugs and kisses. The second thing is, Ariel. Ariel is a very big name in the industry. Ariel has some very very successful exits and startups under his belt. How is it like working with him? How did you two meet?
It's a great question. So Ariel is a serial entrepreneur and a serial investor. He has I'm joking with him that he has like a small VC under his belt, and we actually met in that context. We met him through an initial idea that we had, nothing concrete. We just met him, and we had that click. And after some conversation, he actually came with the initial idea of Coho. And at first, I thought that he's actually sharing an idea for kind of free. And I'm like, okay, thank you and goodbye. And then he actually said, well, wait a minute, I'm thinking of joining here as a co-founder and not as an investor. And that was like a whole new thing to me. And obviously, it's a different process. We evaluate that. We work together to see if we have that bond. And obviously, it was an amazing experience right from the start. And since then, it's just booming. And really, I can't stress it enough. To have him on the team is unbelievable.
Ariel is hands-on right now. He's an active co-founder. He's really hands-on in the product, everything.
Yes, yes. He's working.
Amazing.
Everybody's a little bit surprised, but when you see him with the shirt in a booth in a conference, you would understand that he's in the details. Is in the details.
Amazing. And you guys also have a great advisory team. Yoav Vilner is part of the advisory team. Also, Walnut, a company that we worked for a long, long time. How do you feel having him on the advisory board?
It's really great. Look, I think for me but for the company in general, it's very important to surround yourself with meaningful people that can help you achieve your goals. And our goal is very ambitious. And so having people that understand our space, that understand specific elements, not obviously the whole thing, but from Yoav's perspective, he's in the sales industry for some time now, and Walnut is an amazing company by itself, and what he achieved in that sense. So have that mindset and connections, obviously, is very meaningful. So it's really helped us, grow the business. So having people like him and James and other advisors that we have really navigate us towards the right place of where we want to be.
So let's talk a little bit about Kohu, about the product. For the people who've never heard about you guys, can you kind of explain what you guys do?
There are people that never heard of us. Not real. No, I'm joking. We're we basically help SaaS company increase conversion and retention, and we're doing it by, first of all, auto segment their user base to find commonalities around their user base and craft personalized journeys at scale using the buzzword of the year, AI.
So okay, that was very on
High
point.
level. Yeah.
Yeah, on a high level. So basically, let's say, so you guys work, from my understanding, you guys work with B2B and B2C companies, right?
True. B2B and B2C SaaS, yes.
SaaS. And what's the difference between working with with those two different segments?
It's a great question. So essentially, also the B2B segment, we're working with companies that are obviously they're B2B, but they're acting very similar to a B2C mindset, particularly a PLG motion, self-service motion. So they might have an enterprise sell motion, but they have this motion of try to convert on automatic scale, which is very, very close to a B2C mindset. So obviously we're focusing on that segment, and obviously our predominant focus is on B2C. So we have B2B, but let's say our main focus is on B2C.
You know, in the conversations I had with Lihi, who heads the marketing at Coho, super nice person, love working with her, by the way. We talked about how similar it is to kind of like what Zapier does in their vertical, right? Kind of like the automation or the sequences that you can see in that developer space, and you guys are bringing that format into the marketing space. And as a marketer, I can tell you that is like something super interesting that you can not only, because a lot of people, I think from the early 2000s, people have been like really obsessed with like customer journeys, right? Looking at the customer journey, seeing how you can optimize it, both on the funnel side, right, until you get the client, and then on the retention side and on the upsell side. And now you have basically a tool that can kind of like automate it. You can automate it, test it, and automate it again and optimize it. So when you came to Ariel, or when you thought about the initial idea, where did that come from? Where did that need come from?
It's a great question. Look, I think you mentioned like that the idea is in the mindset of marketeers for some time now, and I completely agree with that. I think if you ask any marketeer out there, who would tell you that it's super important to tailor the message to the right persona at the right time. It's all about personalization. But essentially, and you see it drastically in SaaS products, there are so many variations to a state of the user, right? There are users that are using daily, weekly, monthly. There are users that adopted a specific feature versus others. There are so many nuances. So for a marketeer to really craft the customer journey, he needs an operation around that. And the operation is usually consolidation of data, analyzing the data, understanding the customer journey, and then applying the right playbooks to drive the retention and conversion for the users. And what we've seen, and again, I must give Ariel that credit. He sits on multiple boards, and essentially every SaaS company out there is building this stack internally. So if there is a marketeer or a founder listening to us, think of this motion that you have in-house that consolidate all your data in a data warehouse. You're crunching the data and with data scientists and data analysts and trying to create segments, and then you're pushing that segments into Braze or any other automation tool that you're trying to leverage that segmentation to drive outcome. This is the process that you're doing here. Very manual process, in-house tools. Some very sophisticated companies label it with an AI kind of tagging like Big Brain or any other funky name. But essentially, it's a lot of work, a lot of resources being invested, and we've seen it time and time again, and it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense at all. So we decided to create the platform that very easily onboard a customer, visualize what's going on, and then constantly iterate very fast around growth loops to achieve the retention and conversion goals that the company desires. So that was the history of Coho, and obviously brought us to where we at.
So the AI component, that comes in terms of summarizing and suggesting a recommendation in terms
Exactly.
of what
So AI, first of all, AI is a buzzword. So let's try
right.
to bring it down, right? The whole concept when you're dealing with vast amount of data, and the nuance is very important. So you have many, many users. You're trying to understand for each one of them where they at and what is the next objective that you need to take. And there is multiple variations to that. Basic rule-based engines can really facilitate that complexity. So you need an algorithm that learns from past behaviors of users, that constantly evaluate the situation, and sorry of being a little bit obscured, but this is exactly it. And usually AI models are perfect for that mission. So we're applying AI models to learn from past interactions of users on current users and trying to achieve that segmentations and tailored segmentation that are relevant for the company that uses us.
Mm-hmm. So just for some context, I think this is super interesting. So I'm not going to mention her name, but a really a big CMO that I admire that they're clients of us. They are a B2C SaaS brand. Okay. And I'm not going to mention their name, but they're doing an awesome job. And she's a master with analytics, with building customer journeys. But just yesterday night, we went through her process of how she does it, and to see the amount of effort, right? To see the amount of people, the touches, the data scientist guy who takes on the data, the person who does the actual automation, right? Goes and actually does the automation. The person who's in charge of testing it, she getting all that data back and deciding what to do. The testing period, when after they've done the automation, now they have to test it, and now when they need to optimize it, they need to do the whole process again instead of basically just maneuvering the automation, right? Because you need the automation guy, you need to explain to him what you need to do. You need that, right? So I think like what Coho does is Coho is like in the right space, in the right place, in the right time for that vertical. I'm interested. I know I asked that before, but I'm actually more interested about that. So, let's say you're a B2B company, right? And you guys work with B2B companies. Well, those kind of, because on the B2C side, it's very self-explanatory why you need that. There's tons of volume. You want to make sure you don't miss any opportunity, not for resale, not for retention, not to keep your customers happy. But on the B2B side, there's kind of like less movement, right, compared to their B2C counterpart. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can tell me, no, Omri, this is actually, there's B2B clients when there's tons of volume. So I'm really interested to hear how that plays a part specifically on the B2B side.
First of all, it's a great question, but I think, look, we need to segment the B2B world a little bit deeper. If you think of a company like Zoom, right, a product-led motion, they have tons of top of the funnel users that are using the platform, and you're trying to maximize the potential of every single user. And for Zoom, you have, and again, they have a B2C motion, but mainly it's a B2B company, right?
Right.
They have students and they have professionals using Zoom, right? And each one of them has different objectives and different growth path for them. And obviously Zoom has millions of users. So even though that they're B2B, the B is sometimes a C and sometimes an SMB. And even if they're enterprise, they're starting in a single team within a company and are growing slowly but surely to an enterprise deal. So what happens from the moment, let's say, I don't know, JP Morgan is using Zoom, right? There is one user that is using Zoom in JP Morgan, and you're trying to make an enterprise deal. The motion is very similar to a B2C because you're not throwing an AE on that single user. He's just doesn't know why salesperson is talking to them. You're trying to grow his usage. You're trying to make him understand the product, adopt the features, invite more users, and then you're growing a team, and then you're influencing another team, and you're growing until a certain moment where it's an opportunity for an enterprise deal. So how do you manage that process until a certain moment there that, again, sales motion taking it from here and making an enterprise deal? You need to manage that at scale in order to have an efficient pipeline. And this is where Coho fits in taking that self-service motion to the full extent, highlighting also to the sales organization who they should reach out to, when and why, which is very automatic. So when you have that piece of go-to-market strategy, you have to have some kind of information. Otherwise, you're not really maximizing the potential of that motion itself, because again, it's not feasible to put more and more headcount on the problem.
When you look at some of the actions and automations that people take using Coho, so I'm sure like just from everyone would think lots of those stuff are internal stuff, right? sending like this is the time, like let's say you get a recommendation, this is a great time to send a product update email or this feature email or invite a new user. And so a lot of these things are internal. Do you also see does Coho also offer recommendations for certain external stuff? Like, I don't know, this is a great time to run a Facebook ads resell, or or a sell campaign or something of that based on those kind of stuff? Or are you guys mainly in the internal place?
No, we are working with both. And I think what's important is not to think about the playbook, but to think about the outcome of the playbook.
Hmm.
So if you have if you're trying to have a campaign around bringing back users, right? It's an external, it's an external to the application because they're not using the product anymore. So the question is how you're tailoring the email campaign or even the advertisement to that user to come back based on a new promise that you have for him. If he used the product and now you're trying to bring him back because another value proposition, would it make sense, or do you want to influence what he actually did in the previous life cycle that he had? So the question is not what we're influencing. It's mainly around we're analyzing the behavior with the product, and then you can navigate it into different channels to achieve your goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes 100% sense. And this actually leads me to my next question. So, you said something that I really like. You basically said it's not about the playbook, it's about the outcome, and basically the playbook is supportive to that outcome, right?
Absolutely.
So, in your own leadership, right? In your own leadership, there's when I look at entrepreneurs across the board, I say they divide into probably two categories of strategy. One category is basically entrepreneurs that they care about the inputs. They care about, okay, how can we optimize our inputs playbook? How can we and a lot of things. It could be the marketing, it could be sales, it could be management, everything, HR. So it's basically how can we optimize that playbook, those inputs, and the outcome will take care of itself as long as we're optimizing the inputs. And then there's the other field of thinking, um, is basically outcome based thinking. Is, listen, guys, we want to reach this. This is what we want. We don't know what's the right playbook, but what's the right thing. But we're actually going to test and optimize until we reach that specific outcome. When you look at things, what kind of category would you say you are in? You're operating at?
I think it's a great question, but I think it's also a matter of a specific situation. Obviously, you have some cases where you're trying to optimize a specific goal. I think every entrepreneur should know what is his conversion rates, his retention rates, and try to optimize and make it bigger, right? This is the goal, right? Every entrepreneur would say would should, but it's the basics. However, sometimes you have what also we called an operational playbooks, right? That they're not achieving a specific goal, but are super important, right? So I will give you an example. If you want to send an alert to your customer success or to your AEs, or in the B2C space, you want to send an email once a week to all the stakeholders saying, what is the status with a specific segmentation of user? That there is no like specific goal in mind. You just want that automation to stay alert, to stay on top of things, and it's perfectly fine, and Coho will support that. But behind the scenes, there is something you're trying to actually achieve a bigger goal.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we are very focused. Again, in marketing 101, you want to be very focused, right? And we're focusing on increasing retention and increasing conversion. So you might say that we need to focus only one, but so far it's being okay. And of course, you can do many things with Coho, but we're trying to help our customers in that objective. And if that is our purpose, how we are tailoring that whole experience in the product to achieve that goal. And part of it is to set up goals, track your operations, see what playbook worked, which didn't, what is new segmentation that you need to act on, and constantly iterate around improvements, your top KPIs, which is ours, retention and conversion.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And in terms of like you're surrounded, we talked about it kind of earlier in the conversation. You're surrounded now by really high level entrepreneurs. This is your first official startup right after Microsoft, after being in Microsoft, and learning probably for for with from other people. And I haven't asked you this before, but have you been in Microsoft when Seth Rappaport was in Microsoft as well? Yeah, so you got to, he's also a very, very high level entrepreneur. And I think he was also in 8200, right? If I'm not mistaken. Cool. So that's another great entrepreneur to check out and learn from. Other than those people that you've kind of surrounded yourself, is there any other like books or podcasts or movies or that have kind of like influenced you in terms of your leadership, in terms of how you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
That's a very, very interesting question that I didn't reflect on. So I don't have, I think of my guide for success. I have my favorite books. Look, I think I'm in a different situation than most people. All of my family are entrepreneurs. Like literally, I don't have any influence. My father, my grandfather from both sides, all my cousins, all my uncles, everyone is in their space an entrepreneur. So first of all, I didn't have a choice. Like it was kind of it's just a matter of when, not a matter of if. And obviously, exposure is super super important for me. Regarding books, it's I will need to reflect and think. There are the basic ones that I think every entrepreneur should read into some point. There is Behind the Chasm that I strongly recommend. There is 0 to 1. There, the most basic ones. Again, I always tend to look at those books as anecdotes because it's very hard because every situation is different and I read the book Start with Why when I started work and think of Co's messaging. And you understand. I don't know if you familiar with the concept, but it's basically how you're framing a messaging around. Start with why you're doing it, then the what, and then the how, or the how and then the what. See, I already forgot. But my main problem was that our situation seems so unique. So it takes time, even this simple concept, to try to make it your own. So I would. It's very tricky. It's a tricky question. I don't have an answer right from my belt.
Yeah, but I think you're correctly right, because everything, whatever you read, you need to be a bit careful, because it's from a specific point of view of someone who has a specific experience that he himself sometimes doesn't really know, the cause of and the fact of everything that he did,
No, it's
right?
always the insight. It's always in
It's,
hindsight. We actually did that, which led us to that understanding. Which again, obviously, it's okay, but it's very hard to learn and apply it to your own situation. So yeah, I'm always taking this all the advice that I get with a grain of salt.
I'll tell you something interesting. So I've been like obsessed with like the daily routines of entrepreneurs. So that was like my obsession. So I would like Google, and when I interview people, I would like try to see what's the common things between everyone. Some do meditation, some do workouts in the morning, some eat only celery. So, and I tried to find like a common ground. And then someone told me something super, that was the truth. Basically, he came up and told me, that when you ask a lot of those entrepreneurs, you need to ask them what was your daily routine when they were building the actual thing, not when they're already billionaires and they're like sitting on their yacht and like have time to do, right. So it's like you need to make sure that to look at what they do when they're working, not when they're not working, right. When they're actually working, what are the most valuable actions that they take to build. And some of those billionaires are still working super hard every single day, like Elon Musk or Jack Dorsey, or there's so many names that you can always learn from them. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's just to counter your point. And Itamar, like I really enjoyed, this conversation and like having you on the show. Is there, anything else you want to say? Any updates? Anything, people should be looking out for Coho or yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, check out the application. I think again, if you're qualified and I think I elaborate a little bit about RICP, but if you think it's relevant for you, don't hesitate to contact us. We have an awesome demo, and that is it. Check us out, and hopefully we can help you boost your retention and conversion metrics.
So the website is coho.ai. You can also follow Itamar Falcon on LinkedIn. You can also follow Coho on LinkedIn as well. Awesome. And yeah,
Yeah.
and Google them. So read articles about them. Awesome,
Thank
Itamar. Thank you so much, man.
you very much.